What's with you and Transformers, pal? Why do you like them so much?
Um, well, I've been a fan of Transformers since the Beast Wars era back in the 90s.
Mm,
That was where I got in, and I really enjoy the ironically enough the malleability,
mm-hmm.
the fact that it transforms all the time. I like the different takes on the mythology. I like seeing where different creative organizations go with the same story,
Right.
because ultimately they're the same story told over and over again.
My son said something to me about the Transformers, and I said, "You got to understand, Jonas. These started out as toys,
Yes.
and every because he okay. So it's my son. So he was asking questions like, well, where are their penises? How are baby Transformers born? How does any of the biology work?" And I went, "Stop it! These were toys. These were Daddy's toys. Don't you understand, child?" And they were just trying to come up with a story for a cartoon to sell the damn toys. Don't you worry about Optimus Prime's penis, you 10-year-old child. You. Anywho, keep going.
Um,
I
it's
worry
funny you
about your
mention
boy
that because the
sometimes.
Marvel Comics actually did that. They discussed all that.
Oh, do tell.
Uh,
See,
depending on the
you can't
story,
throw that out there and then not address it.
Transformers bud. They actually grow little tiny Transformers off of their bodies, and then when they get big enough, they pop off.
What, like Gremlins?
I swear to God. I swear to God.
Like, what is it in biology where like you grow another organism onto out of yourself, and you just keep like splitting and multiplying? Like that's how Transformers work.
Mitosis, yeah.
Yeah, mitosis. That's awesome.
I don't know what I came back into, but go ahead.
We're talking about where baby Transformers come from. Welcome to the show.
But then based on the different continuities, sometimes they're built, sometimes they're forged from Cybertron itself. There's all sorts of different stories.
All right, cool. All right, so we are talking Transformers 1 tonight. Transformers 1 is a 2024 American animated science fiction action film based on Hasbro's Transformers toy line. It was directed by Josh Cooley from a screenplay by Eric Pearson and the writing duo of Andrew Barrer and Gabriel Ferrari, based on a story by Barrer and Ferrari. It's an ensemble cast that includes Thor, Brian Tyree Henry, Black Widow, Keegan Michael Key, Steve Buscemi, Lawrence Fishburne, and John Hamm. It is set on Cybertron, the home planet of the Transformers, and depicts the origins and early relationships of Optimus Prime and Megatron. Transformers 1 premiered in Sydney, Australia on September 11, 2024, and was released by Paramount Pictures in the US on September 20th. The film has grossed $38.6 million worldwide and received largely positive reviews from critics who praised the story, humor, action sequences, animation, and voice performances. Cole, one of the reasons why I wanted to have you on tonight was, and we'll get into the plot synopsis and craft review in just a minute, but when I had you on for the Netflix show, we had a whole conversation about Transformers lore and like the history of the Cybertronian wars, and like you were teaching a class on my podcast in Transformers history, such as it was. So my question to you before we get into all of this tonight is: this is about the pre-Cybertronian civil war between Optimus Prime and Megatron, the Autobots and Decepticons. This is about the friendship between Orion Pax and D13, whatever the hell his name is, and how they became what they became and why they fell apart. Why Cain and Abel split as brothers. So how close to the mark does this movie come for you?
Well, see, what you have to understand about Transformers is that there is no mark.
Okay.
Famously, there was an attempt many years ago to make one continuity called the Aligned Continuity when Transformers Prime, the cartoon, came out. They tried to merge that with some books and the video games. They told the same story 3 times, and they told it 3 different ways.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of Transformers in a nutshell. There is no one canon. There are
Got it. We have
many stories.
We have many gospels. I understand.
Yes, exactly. How it keeps to the accepted version of their story is with Optimus Prime and Megatron being friends beforehand and coming up together and taking on the establishment, but the whole thing with them being minor bots and not being able to transform and all that stuff is very different. That's all a very new take on the story.
Okay. Before we get into this, while Jason still plays with his camera and microphone, Robert, I know you and I have reviewed a lot of the Transformers live action movies.
They all suck.
Correct. Do you have any special affection one way or the other? Because I honestly don't remember, for the Transformers IP.
Yeah. I was square in the target demographic of the Saturday morning cartoon when that thing first came out.
Mm-hmm.
And my little mechanically oriented brain went, ooh, I can play with these. And I can... And there's very real satisfaction for especially moderately neurodivergent. And I don't know where exactly I might fall on that. But being able to look at those, figure out how they work, make them transform, it's a very satisfying thing, to say nothing of how much fun you could have just throwing them around. So I have a lot of affection for this. I remember being a young kid and getting this would be a VHS copy of the first movie, which is somehow still, I think, the best Transformers movie.
Yeah, that so in the archive, for anyone that cares, me, Jesse, and I think Ronnie, Cole, you may have been there, or Josh, one of the two of you. We did the alternative commentary for the Transformers the movie cartoon, and what a time we had on that. Number one. Number two, what a great, that movie still holds up, and and the few times it gets referenced in this movie cracked me the fuck up. I had some embarrassingly loud old man guffaws during this movie. And
so what,
that
you
was
don't have
one of them.
I imagine you don't have the touch or the power was the one that really got you.
I literally went, and my daughter was like, shut up. The other one was the GoBots line, where she was like, you're the only one making noise, shut up.
Okay, fair enough. But yeah, I have a good affection for them. I missed kind of the peak of this because of just like timing and some of my age. I was a little bit more of a Turtles guy than a Transformers guy, but there's enough overlap there that I have a deep affection for both of them. So, yeah, I very much kind of enjoy a lot of the different takes, not all of them, some more than others, as evidenced by our knockdown drag-out fights over your love of schlock.
So, for the new people, if you want to hear Robert and I have a goddamn fist fight on the air, the one we always reference is Deadpool. Deadpool was a minor disagreement in comparison to the near friendship ending podcast that was Age of Extinction, where that is the one I point to where it's like, you want to hear Robert and I lose patience with each other and start screaming. That was that podcast. Like, we were friendly and still mad at each other at the same time. It was pretty fun.
Yeah, so there's that. And yeah, that's kind of my history with this franchise, such as it is.
Your brother is a huge fan of that one. He says, still the best podcast is J Transformers Age of Extinction. For those of you wanting a good old-fashioned Mark and Robert knockabout, Age of Extinction. So I watched it as a kid. It was like one of 3 cartoons I focused on when I was growing up. I loved it. I remember, so my dad would get me a toy to kind of bribe me to get good grades. And I remember the very first time he rewarded me for a good report card, I actually got a Transformers toy. I got Hound. And one of my neighbor friends had every single Transformers, and I remember playing with them and being really, really jealous that he had so many. I gave up playing with toys towards the end of, probably between 10 and 13. But I remember still kind of hanging on the Transformers until the very, very end when I completely gave up toys. Like, it was the last one because I loved them so much. I was still kind of collecting them. Real quick, Jason, I know you were on for the last Transformers review, the one that did the whole the Beast Wars thing.
Beast Wars. Yeah,
Yeah,
I was
so
on
you-
Beast Wars.
Yeah, so you're a pretty big fan of Transformers too, right?
Yeah, I grew up with Transformers. I loved Transformers growing up. Grew up with the cartoon. I had I want to say a giant Optimus Prime.
Mhm.
And every time I go to Universal Studios, I always make sure that I get my picture with Megatron. It's kind of a running gag because the
Amazing.
Megatron at Universal Studios is the absolute best thing ever because he is kind of a dick and he messes with people and he talks smack to you and he hurls insults at people. It is like the greatest thing ever.
I love the fact that Megatron's a bully at a theme park.
Yeah, and it's the greatest thing ever. And so every time I'm down there, I'm a Decepticon at heart, just because of Megatron. Because who doesn't, as Robert always says, who doesn't love the bad guys?
Always
Everyone loves the bad guys.
always root for the
Um,
heel.
Yeah, you have to. But
Always
yeah,
is a bit of a stretch.
grew up with Transformers. Grew up in that whole era of Transformers, GI Joe, and absolutely loved it. Um, so seeing this movie, I had low expectations. So
Oh, we're gonna talk about that. I think
it's kind of it was kind of something that I wanted to hop onto because the Transformer franchise has been all over the place. If anybody has listened to any of your and Robert's reviews in the past, they can tell how all over the place it's been, and it's 90% been bad. So definitely wanted to get on this review and talk about how they did this prequel, and just to see what kind of prequel they would have came up with. Especially when it was pitched that they was going to show that Optimus and Megatron actually started out as these low-level mining bot friends that grew to these immensely popular dualities of opposing forces.
So I don't always call out the comments, but this one cracked me up. Hashtag Megatron was right. Yeah, that's going on a T-shirt at my TeePublic store. All right, Robert.
Megatron's not Thanos. He wasn't right.
All right.